Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome back to our series going through the Ten Commandments. Very excited to continue this series. If you have a Bible, I urge you to open it to Exodus 20, verse 16. We are in Exodus 20, verse 16. We are getting closer and closer to the end of our Ten Commandments series. I'm very excited, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. If you are new and this is your first time watching my Bible study series, welcome. I do this every Sunday where I go through a Bible study series or I walk you through some text of the Bible because I am a Christian and part of my mandate, part of my calling is to share the gospel and share the truth with as many people as possible. And since I have this awesome platform, it would be foolish of me not to take advantage of that and use that to share my passion and faith and knowledge with other people. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you get something out of this. If you are a veteran, welcome back. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series as long as it's been going on. And please feel free to watch the other series that I've done if you haven't already. So we've talked a lot about the Ten Commandments, guys. We've talked a lot about what it's supposed to be. And just as a little refresher, what we want to really hammer in about the Ten Commandments is that these aren't just a list of don'ts. I think a lot of people look at the Ten Commandments and say, it's just our list of don'ts. It's God's rules to say, you're not allowed to do this, 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 or this. Essentially, no fun of any kind. You know, God is saying, no fun of any kind. You have to live a boring, droll life because I'm not letting you have any fun. But what we've talked about, what the Ten Commandments really are, is the guide that God has given us to living a successful, functional, happy life in a functional society. And what we've tried to prove as we've gone through this is if you take the Ten Commandments and apply them to what we see today in society and see how these commandments are not being upheld, we see that our society is not as great as we'd like it to be. And today, we're going to be talking about one that I think is going to get a lot of people a little confused, because trust me, once we lay down this commandment, commandment number 9 for many of you, once we lay down this commandment, some of you are going to say, okay, but hold on, Raven, hold on, because that's what a lot of people do when they get to this one. So, Exodus 20, verse 16, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You can pretty much simplify this verse down to thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not tell lies. That's essentially what this verse is. And it should be simple. That should be very simple. But a lot of people really don't understand this verse. And I have met so many Christians, yes, Christians, who try to negotiate this verse. Say, now hold on. What about? Or what if? Or there's also this circumstance. I've never heard a verse of the Bible where so many Christians try to negotiate it down like this. It's complicated. And so what I want to do is I want to stress why this verse is complicated to so many people and the truth of the matter. Let's first get down an idea of what lying is. What is lying? St. Augustine of Hippo, a famous theologian, once famously said a pretty good definition for what lying is. He said, a person who lies is one who has one thing in mind, yet expresses something else with words. A person who lies is a person who has one thing in mind and yet expresses something else in words. So pretty much anything that is untruthful. Anything that is untruthful. That is a lie. We've established what a lie is. Now, do all lies break the 9th commandment? That's the big question a lot of Christians ask. Because a lot of Christians will point to the Bible and look at situations where people lied but got rewarded for it. If you look in the book of Exodus chapter 1, you read about how Pharaoh wanted to kill the baby boys of the Israelites. So he told the Egyptian midwives, hey, when you go to deliver the slave women's baby boys, if they are a boy, you kill that baby boy. But the midwives feared God, so they said, well, you know, the Hebrew women are just so strong. When we get there to try to deliver the babies, they've already done it without us, so we couldn't do what you asked. And the Bible says in Exodus 1:21 that because they feared God, they were given families. They were rewarded for their lie. And then, of course, there's Rahab, a popular one in the book of Joshua. In the book of Joshua, we read about how the Israelites were coming up on Jericho, a big pagan city, and it was blocking their way into the promised land, so they sent in spies to get a feeling for the city. But they knew that they were going to be caught, so they went into the prostitute's house known as Rahab. And Rahab hid them, and then when the soldiers showed up to ask about them, Rahab lied and said, I don't know where they are. Like, they were here once, but they got away. I don't know where they are now. The fact is, she lied too, and God rewarded her by allowing her family to remain saved and to travel with the Israelites later. These two situations of women lying, and they weren't harmed for it, they were praised for it. In fact, Rahab is praised in the New Testament. So what's the deal? Why is it okay for them to lie? Well, a couple things we need to remember. The first of all is, keep in mind the phrasing of that first one, of Exodus 1:21. Because they feared God, they were given families. It did not say because they lied to Pharaoh. No, because they feared God. Therein lies the difference. It was a fear of God that God praised, not the lie itself. I want to take a look at another theologian. I want to take a look at St. Thomas Aquinas. You may have heard of him. He is a very, very popular theologian from the 13th century. He was the first major theologian who I think acknowledged the simple act of lying does not necessarily violate the ninth commandment. Now, hold on. Before you jump on me, before you start saying, are you saying there are some lies that don't violate that? Hold on, bear with me. He argued that to have one thing in mind and yet say another is not itself an act of injustice, but it is not a good thing to do. Why? Well, the short answer is because we're linguistic creatures, and God created us to be able to speak for the purpose of communicating truth. And while it may be prudent to withhold the truth at times, telling lies, no matter how small or convenient, can never contribute to our flourishing in a positive way. See, let's talk about the midwives and Rahab. What they committed were called venial sins because they're forgivable. And as St. Thomas explains, these biblical heroes were not acting in direct opposition to God's law. Now, it would have been better if they found a way to avoid lying, but this action can be isolated from the broader context of their attempt to save others. As the biblical text affirms, these women were motivated by their love for God, and for this they should be praised. But we have to be careful here, because their lies are not reclassified as good actions just because they resulted in a good outcome or because their hearts were in the right place. St. Paul even reminds us we cannot do evil that good may come. That's Romans 3:8. The lies still remain sins. What St. Thomas teaches us is that these lies are not the kind of action that severs one's relationship with God. If Rahab had told a lie or performed any other action that brought harm upon someone else, then the sin would have been that much more serious. Now, why do I make a big deal about this? You're probably saying, Raven, this sounds very legalistic. It is, but bear with me. There are times we might be tempted to say that lying is not bad after all. As long as we're not hurting anyone, why not tell a lie when it's more convenient? Well, that is the argumentation of a philosopher, of a sophist, of someone who says, when is it right to be dishonest? But the saint, the godly man, does not think this way. St. Thomas tells us, and this is my favorite point that he makes, truthfulness is a virtue. Truthfulness is a virtue. See, a lot of people like to walk around and they like to say, but in this circumstance, it's okay if I lie, right? Truthfulness is a virtue. It's something that we hold with us. It's something that we should try to abstain, that we should try to live by. Why? Because that's what God wants us to live by. God gave us the ability to speak so that we could speak the truth. And yet, when we choose not to, when we choose, it's just a small lie. And I'll go ahead and give a personal example. When I was growing up, I lied a lot. Now, my lies weren't usually told to hurt anybody. My lies were told to make myself look better. Because I had a lot of self-esteem issues, so I wanted to lie and try to make myself sound cooler than I really was. I told my supposed friends or people that I wanted to be my friends about all the cool things I'd done. I lied to my parents to try to get out of trouble. Because I thought that if I lied to get out of trouble, it'd be okay. But you know what? My dad said something that kind of put the fear of God in me. He said, one day you're going to lie so much that you start believing your own lies. I didn't understand that until one day I told a lie. But about a week later, my mom caught me in the lie and called me out. But I had been so dedicated to this lie, I actually believed that it had happened until Mom had to reveal proof to me that it didn't. And that's when it hit me. Dad was right. I had lied to the point I started believing my own lies. So I had to break that habit. I had to start living a more virtuous, honest life. And it's not easy to break habits, guys. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. But it is something that I had to reconcile with myself. On the one hand, the lies I told, for the most part, didn't hurt anybody. No one was hurt by these lies. I was never lying on the stand. I was never doing that kind of lie. But still, what it had done is it had shattered trust between me and the people around me. My dad put it a great way. Trust is like a wall you build brick by brick by brick. When you're caught in a lie, it breaks the wall. Like all the bricks shatter, and it takes time to rebuild that wall. Trust is something you have to build up over time. But dishonesty can shatter all the trust you've worked on. Why is it important that we not lie? Because it's important that we build a trusting society. You want to know something funny? If you look around at the world as it is, let me ask you this. Do you trust what the media says at all times? Do you trust, a lot of you guys are gamers who watch my channel, do you trust gaming developers all the time? Do you trust politicians? Do you trust your government? Probably harder to answer that, right? See, that's the reason why trust is so important. That's the reason why honesty is a virtue. Truthfulness is a virtue, because it is something we need to carry with us. It's something that we need to subscribe to, even when it's not beneficial to us in the moment. You know, I've been talking about Warhammer 40k recently, and there's a line from Warhammer 40k that I love. It was said by one of the Primarchs, Jagat Saikan. He said, the truth will hurt. But when a lie is exposed, it hurts even worse. Because not only does the lie reveal the hurtful truth, but it shows that you didn't have enough honesty and integrity to be honest in the first place. Heavy stuff. Heavy stuff. Now, some of you are probably hearing all this and going, okay, hold on, Raven, but okay, what about in this situation? Is it okay to lie in this situation? Should I be able to lie here? Well, what if this is going on? Can I lie here? You're already asking the wrong questions. You're already asking the wrong questions. That is the mentality of the sophist, where you're looking for reasons to lie. But a true virtuous man, a man of God, says, I should strive to tell the truth in everything. I should strive to tell the truth in everything. In fact, a godly man thinks, how can I serve God? How can I be beneficial to and furthering of God's kingdom today? What can I do to further the will of God? Rahab and the midwives in the Bible said, we are going to serve God by lying to God's enemies. That's how they decided to go about it. Now, whether or not what they did is right or wrong in the grand scheme of things, according to Thomas Aquinas, what they did was done out of fear of God. So we're cool. But if you start going, well, okay, but if I'm in that situation, you're already looking at this the wrong way. You shouldn't look to Rahab and the midwives as, if I'm in that situation, I can lie. No. You should look at it as they feared God and were rewarded for it. What can I do out of the fear of God? That's the way to look at this. Here's the reality, guys. Lying is easy. Lying is so easy. Because sometimes, like I said, the truth can be painful. And we don't want to always hurt people. Sometimes it's better to tell a little white lie to just get out of trouble, you know? Like, I think that some people will probably ask the question, what if my girlfriend asks me, do I look good in this dress? And she really doesn't. Do I say, nah, you look awful? Well, like I said, the truth can hurt, but I think it's also about how you say it. Think about the godly thing to say. Think about the godly thing to say. Think about the words that come out of your mouth. I think that's the best way to look at this. Think about the words that come out of your mouth and ask yourself, are the words that I am spitting, are the things I'm saying glorifying God? If they aren't, we've got a problem. And lying very rarely can ever glorify God. Because God calls us to be truthful. God calls us to be honest. And when we're not, how can we possibly glorify God when we're not doing what He's created us to do? We'll know that we are on the righteous path when instead of asking, when is it okay to lie, we find ourselves instead asking, God to show us how to be more truthful. That was a quote from Thomas. We will know we're on the righteous path when instead of asking when it's okay to lie, we instead find ourselves asking God to show us how we can be more truthful. Powerful stuff today, guys. Really enjoyed this one. We've got one more commandment to go, guys. One more commandment. Next time, we will be in Exodus 20:17 about coveting your neighbor. And that'll be the last one, and then we'll be done with this series. Thank you guys so much for following me on this series. I have really enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you guys again on Sunday, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.